Let's begin.
Hey there, scary story fanatics. Welcome back to Cleaving Thought from Bone with your host, Sociopathic. Tonight, we get back to normal as an area full of killers and crazies can be. So, if you're wondering what order of fanatics the Redcoat had referenced, settle in as we continue the story of mayhem and fear with a little chapter in the Locust Lake saga that Doughboy420 likes to call Locust Lake, Cult of Locusts.
Becky was a sophomore attending college on the southern edge of upstate New York. She mostly kept to herself, and by mostly everyone on campus, she was seen as an outsider, a loner that no one wanted to be around. That is, aside from her friend Lexi. Her real name was Alexia, but a lot of her friends called her Lexi for short. Lexi would actually take time out of her day to invite Becky along for various activities. Occasionally, she would go along, but most of the time, she just sat around at home and read a book. It was a Friday night like any other when Lexi once again invited her antisocial friend out to a social event. Alexia handed her a flyer she had gotten from a friend and demanded that she come along, saying,
"You better get off your ass and go with me, Beck. You need to get out and have some fun. It'll be totally lit. Come on, please."
Becky then mockingly read the flyer.
"How many hours will you take getting turned near Locust Lake? 5. The lake is closed. 10. Go up the road. 15. We've got booze. 20. And bitchin' tunes. 25. There's an old mansion. 30. Come on out for some mind expansion. Join the party for 30 hours of fun at the old mansion up the hill from Locust Lake." Sounds like a total blast,
Becky added sarcastically.
"Count me out,"
she said, handing the flyer back to Lexi and turning to walk away to head to class.
"Uh-huh. You're not getting off that easy,"
Alexia said, as she jumped in front of Becky once again.
"Come on, Lexi."
Becky began.
"Mind expansion? Really? More like mind reduction. Half the people there have probably partied away half their brain cells. No thanks,"
she finished. Alexia just stood there with her arms crossed, a stern look upon her face.
"What?"
Becky asked. Alexia stood there, looked Becky dead in the eyes, and replied,
"Rebecca, you're going to that party. No ifs, ands, or buts about it."
"Fine. I'll go,"
Becky said, rolling her eyes and sighing in disgust.
"but I'm gonna be home by midnight. I'm not staying out there for 30 hours. That's crazy,"
she added.
"Yay!"
Alexia exclaimed with a jump for joy.
"Awesome. So pick me up at 8?
She asked.
"Shoulda figured you'd need a ride." "All right. But I'm still home by midnight. If you don't come along, you're on your own."
Becky sighed, agreeing to take her friend to the party under that one condition.
"Deal."
Alexia said, happily, giving her friend a hug.
"You won't regret it."
She finished, before hurrying off to go about her day and get ready for the night.
"I can't believe I let her talk me into that."
Becky sighed to herself, before going about her day. The day was a quick one, and the night came before they knew it.
"Hey, Beck, Can we maybe stop somewhere on the way? It's Ryan's birthday and I gotta stop and get him something,
Alexia said.
Why isn't your boyfriend taking you to this party instead of me?
Becky asked.
because you don't get out enough and I wanted to make sure you didn't back out on me.
Alexia began.
And besides, he has to work until 10, and then he's going to meet us there.
She added. The two of them drove into town to stop at a nearby store before heading south to the party near Locust Lake.
Oh!
Alexia exclaimed.
Stop here,
She said, pointing to the little shop off the side of the river road. It was a quaint little shop, nestled in the middle of a town nearby to the grocery store. An old-timey-looking sign at the eaves of the building read, Shaw's Hobby and Wonder Shop. Becky took one look at the sign and rolled her eyes. The name that was on the sign. Mr. Shaw owned the shop. Shaw was the first word in the name of the shop, and the acronym for the shop was also Shaw. It was like Shawception to her, and she couldn't help but let out a small chuckle under her breath.
Here? Really?
Rebecca asked.
Yeah, I kind of want to get him a gag gift and then give him something better later.
She said, with a sly grin.
Ah, I see.
Becky replied, not really knowing what else to say. The two of them entered the shop and began to have a look around. It was a cute little shop. There were old wooden and metal toys, along with newer plastic ones. There were action figures and dolls. There were paints, pencils, crayons, and paper. There was even a section just for the newest things like video games and other technologies. But Alexia didn't really want anything like that. Can I help you with anything? A kind old man spoke from behind the girls. Becky spun around to find an old, balding man with white hair on the edges of his bald dome top. He wore glasses and had a bit of a white beard going on, but it was very short and clean cut. He wore brown khaki pants and a matching brown vest over his white shirt. He stood there with a smile upon his face to help them.
Yeah? I'm looking for something for my boyfriend for his birthday?
Alexia said, still looking around. Well, what does he look like? We have some new PlayStations, if you think he would like that, old Mr. Shaw asked.
No, I was thinking something more like...
Alexia paused for a second before picking something up off the shelf.
This.
She finished, a smile coming across her face. She held up an old-looking, carved, wooden marionette.
Kinda looks like him, don't you think, Beck?
Alexia asked, holding up the marionette.
Yeah, I guess if you say so.
Rebecca answered, not exactly seeing the resemblance and being more creeped out by it than anything. The old man rang them up, and the marionette ended up being gut-wrenchingly expensive to Becky, but Alexia's family had a bit of money, so she didn't see much of a problem with it.
Here, will you hold him a second while I get my card out?
Alexia asked, handing Becky the wooden marionette.
Ouch!
Becky yelled, drawing her hand back.
What's wrong? Are you okay?
Alexia asked with concern.
Damn thing cut my finger!
Rebecca said, looking down at a streak of blood forming upon her fingertip. Oh, I'm sorry, my dear, the old man spoke. Here, let me help you with that, he added, grabbing a paper towel and handing it to the girl to stop the bleeding before reaching into the drawer behind the counter to retrieve a Band-Aid for her to wrap her finger. I'm sorry. I should have warned you that he had a sharp edge under his arm. I'm afraid that with my old age, things just slip my mind. How about I give you a discount on the marionette? Say, 25% off, sound fair? Old Mr. Shaw offered, but before Becky could answer, Alexia took the deal for her.
Ew!
Alexia said, shaking the old man's hand before paying him and rushing out the door.
What the heck, Lexi?
Becky asked.
Sorry, Beck, but we're gonna be late.
Alexia said before hopping into the car. Rebecca looked at her cell phone to see what time it was before she rushed around to the driver's side. It was already almost 9. They were an hour late for the already short night out for Becky. They drove out to the woodland, dirt road that led up toward the closed Forest Trails State Park, but instead of turning into the campground, the two of them ventured further up the road before finally spotting a bunch of cars parked along the end of the dead-end road, and beyond them was a large mansion, filled with music and dozens of drunk partygoers. Becky parked her car behind a long line of other cars, and the two of them were about to open their doors when they were each startled by the sound of loud thumping on the passenger side window. Alexia turned quickly to find that it was her boyfriend standing outside the car.
What the fuck, man?
Alexia asked.
I could have slammed the door open on your face.
She scolded him. Sorry, babe. I couldn't help myself, Ryan said, wrapping his arms around her.
How come you aren't at work?
Alexia asked. I got out early. I figured I'd surprise you, he said, giving her a kiss on the lips.
Really?
Becky said under her breath.
Tell me about it.
A guy spoke from behind Becky. She turned to find a fairly tall man. He stood about 6 feet tall and had jet black hair. It was slicked back with a shine and sprouted out of light, tan-colored skin. His eyes were a pale, hazel color, and he had a calming aura about him, even though his wardrobe of a leather jacket and blue jeans gave off the image of a bad boy. Dan, my man! Yelled an already kind of drunk Ryan.
Hey, Ryan.
Dan spoke up.
Hey, Dan, this is my friend Rebecca.
Alexia said, introducing Becky and catching her a bit off guard.
Hello, Rebecca.
He said with a smile, holding out his hand.
Hi, it's just Beck.
Rebecca said coyly, taking his hand in her own, where he held it up to his lips and kissed the back of her hand, causing her to withdraw it and turn away. Dan put his hand down to his side and looked down to the ground, followed by an uncomfortable moment of silence.
Oh!
Alexia exclaimed, breaking the silence.
I have a present for you,
She added, before climbing back into her car to retrieve the gift that she had gotten for him. Thanks? Ryan said, kind of confused as to why Alexia would have gotten him a toy.
Don't you think it looks like you?
Alexia asked him. If you think I look like a gnome or something, then yeah, I guess, Ryan joked, seeing the same lack of resemblance that Rebecca had. Alexia then made a voice as though she was pretending to be the marionette.
But Ryan, can't you see? You must be long-lost brothers,
She said, as she placed the arm of the marionette around Ryan's shoulder so that he could take a picture of the two of them together. This got a chuckle out of everybody before Becky spoke up.
Watch out for your twins' killer armpit.
Becky said, holding up her bandaged finger. Huh? Ryan said, a bit confused. Becky and Alexa laughed before heading down toward the old mansion.
Come on, we'll tell you about it on the way.
Alexia said before walking off, the boys following them. The front door to the building opened up to a large room with a staircase at its center that led up to a balcony on either side of the room, along with other rooms that branched off from the sides of the center entryway. There were people dancing and grinding on each other across the floor, up the stairs, and on both sides of the balcony. The music was pumping, and glow sticks could be seen being spun around in the air. People were drinking spiked punch, liquor straight from the bottle, and doing keg stands simultaneously with 3 separate kegs. The smell of marijuana and cigarette smoke filled the air, and everyone was having the time of their life. Even Rebecca loosened up a bit and had a few drinks. They drank and danced, several of them even taking turns dancing with Ryan's marionette birthday gift. It may have been a gag gift, but it actually brought a lot of fun to the already awesome party. Hours passed, and the night drew on. Everyone was having a blast, so much so that Becky missed her deadline for the time that she wanted to be home, and before she knew it, everything went black. When Becky awoke, everything was dark and quiet, aside from the sound of distant water dripping. The air smelt of mildew, and it was icy cold. She immediately began to shiver in response to the crisp air as she wrapped her arms around herself and climbed to her feet, hugging her thin hoodie to her body.
Hello?
Rebecca called out.
Is anyone there?
She called again, but she got no reply. Suddenly, 4 large flood lamps lit up in the 4 corners of the room, shining down to illuminate the area. It was a room made completely of stone, as if it were carved directly out of a single cube. There were no seams where blocks would interconnect. Each wall was completely smooth, aside from a stone archway on either side of the room, with stone slabs blocking what appeared to be doors. Rebecca looked around to find 5 other people laying on the floor around her. She glanced down at the floor next to her to find that Alexia was unconscious at her feet.
Oh my god! Lexi!
Becky yelled out.
Lexi, wake up! Are you alright?
She shook the unconscious girl. Alexia stirred.
What?
She said, holding up her hand to her head, still in a daze.
Alexia, get the fuck up!
Becky yelled.
Where are we?
She asked again.
What?
Alexia began as she looked around. Then her eyes widened as she let out a scream upon realizing that she was somewhere unfamiliar to her. This stirred the others awake, one by one. Ryan and Dan were there too, along with another man and woman that none of them recognized, but everyone was completely confused and absolutely scared about what this meant for each of them. Calm down, brothers and sisters. You have nothing to fear. A man's welcoming voice spoke from the darkness above them. Who are you? Ryan yelled.
Let's go!
Alexia shouted up into the darkness. Suddenly, a light flicked on between the 2 large lamps, illuminating the silhouette of 3 figures clad in black robes.
You have been chosen for greatness.
A woman's voice spoke, emanating from the figure on the right of the 3. You will bring us life. Another man's voice spoke, this one produced by the figure on the left. You are our sacred offering. The first man spoke once more, revealing himself to be the figure in the middle. You are our gift to the woman in the water. You are our gift to the locusts. All 3 of them spoke in unison before the light behind them flicked off once more, cloaking the hooded figures again in darkness. Hey, what the hell does that mean? Ryan yelled up at the darkness. He got no reply. They were gone. Or they were just watching and waiting, observing their subjects like rats in a cage. Rats that would soon be subject to experimentation in the name of their own twisted version of the greater good.
Let us the fuck out of here, man!
A third male prisoner, who remained quiet until that point, then yelled out. The remaining female prisoner laid curled up in the fetal position against one of the walls, obviously terrified out of her mind.
Ah, shit. They ain't listening.
The man spoke again, realizing he was wasting his breath.
Hi, I'm Becky. What's your name?
Rebecca said, crouching down to the terrified girl, who looked just a bit younger than her.
Shyanne?
The girl replied quietly.
It's going to be okay, alright, Shyanne? I'm scared too, but we're gonna get out of this, okay?
Becky spoke to her soothingly.
We are locked up in what looks like a cave. Pretty sure we're far from okay.
The belligerent man spoke.
Relax, man. If we want to get out of this, we're gonna have to work together. I'm Dan. That's Ryan, Alexia, and Rebecca. What about you?
Dan asked the angry man.
The name's Murphy. Not that it matters much since we're all gonna die down here.
The man said matter-of-factly. It was at that moment that the stone slab blocking the door to the right then slid out of the way, opening the passage for them. Ryan immediately began walking toward the door, where he was stopped by Alexia.
Are you crazy?
She asked. It doesn't look like we have any other options. I don't really want to sit in this room and be their sacrifice. Out there, we might have a chance. Ryan replied. The rest of the group agreed, and together they ventured off into the winding maze of tunnels, carved deep into the mountain.
Where do you think we are?
Dan asked Becky.
I don't know. Underground, I think?
Becky answered, followed closely behind Shyanne, who was being led by Alexia, Ryan, and Murphy.
Why are they doing this?
Shyanne cried quietly to herself.
I don't know.
Murphy answered.
But when I find him, I'm gonna kill him.
He added angeredly, getting an eye roll from Ryan, who followed behind him. Suddenly, a large beastly thing jumped out from the darkness, tackling Shyanne to the ground. The thing screeched in her face, its thick saliva slipping past its broken teeth to land upon the poor girl's face. She screamed in terror, kicking and screaming at the pale-skinned thing. The monster had unnaturally long arms and legs that made cracking noises as it moved. It was once a human, clad in muddy, torn pants and a dirty, old, red coat. The monster scratched and clawed at her, and before any of the others could react, it had split her stomach open to rip out her entrails so that it could feast upon them. As the girl quickly fell limp, everyone had already vacated the area. Murphy was the first to go, taking off at the first sign of danger, whereas everyone else stayed behind just long enough to witness the poor girl's death. The lot of them made it to a split in the tunnel, and in a panic of everything, they ended up getting split into two groups. Murphy took the tunnel to the right, and Ryan followed not long after, whereas Alexia, Becky, and Dan had stumbled their way into the left tunnel.
What the fuck was that?
Murphy yelled in fear. Shh! You want to get gutted too? Ryan said, trying to quiet Murphy down.
That thing wasn't fucking human, man!
Murphy yelled again. Dude, shut up! If that thing hears us, we're fucked! Ryan commanded.
The red coat lives.
A woman spoke from the darkness, her voice completely new to them. This was followed by a light switching on near the top of the cavern room where Murphy and Ryan now stood, illuminating the silhouettes of three more individuals. The red coat brings us closer. An older man spoke from the right of the woman.
The red coat cometh.
A younger woman spoke from the left side of the three. Ryan knew what was coming this time, so as soon as the lights had turned off once again, he took off, running through the tunnels once more, leaving Murphy behind to suffer a gruesome fate. The man attempted to run as well, but was stopped quickly in his place. He spit up some blood, which in turn was followed by a gurgled scream as the redcoat dug its claws into his back, where he then curled around his ribcage with his body before being ripped back outward, tearing the bones out with it and sprawling them open in a fashion similar to forms of ancient torture, before his body fell to the ground with his ribcage pointing upward like wings ready to take flight. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the tunnels, Alexia, Becky, and Dan had made their way into another neatly carved chamber that looked differently from the otherwise crudely carved tunnels of the cave system. Just like before, another group of bright flood lamps lit up to shine light upon the room, and this was followed by a stone slab being rolled in front of the doorway that they had just entered through.
No, no, no!
Dan yelled as he pounded upon the stone door that blocked their way out, sealing them inside this room. You have taken their mortal coils. Yet another unfamiliar male voice spoke, as another light flicked on behind three new figures.
Oh, come on, this is getting old.
Alexia yelled out. 2 have fallen to the redcoat. A younger man spoke from the right side of the 3, followed by a third man speaking from the left. The locust grows restless, he said, before the lights went dark once more.
Come on.
Alexia yelled.
Come out of the dark and show yourselves.
She added, but instead of getting a reply, the stone door slid open in the opposite side of the room from which they had come.
I guess we don't have much of a choice. I would say ladies first, but I think in this instance, that's the least chivalrous thing I could do, so follow me, I guess.
Dan sighed, leading the way into the darkness of the newly opened tunnel. After leaving the room, Becky reached down onto the cave floor and found a handful of decent-sized stones. She placed the stones in her pocket as her only real means of self-defense, should she have to use them. The 3 of them stuck close together as they moved through the tunnels. Everything was quiet, aside from their footsteps upon the dirt floor beneath them and the sound of water dripping from the ceiling to pool upon the cave floor. The tunnel bent and twisted around before finally opening up into a large chamber with a high ceiling and a half-dozen different branching paths to take, leading off in every direction.
Shit.
Alexia said.
Where do we go now?
She asked no one in particular. None of them really had an answer for her, but an answer came anyway when Ryan came barreling out of the darkness. "Run!" Ryan yelled as he passed by everyone, grabbing Alexia's wrist on the way and pulled her with him into one of the unexplored tunnels. The echoing sound of knocking and cracking could be heard growing ever closer, and the rest of them knew the source of the noise, and didn't want to stick around to verify their suspicions, so they too followed suit and ran as fast as they could, moving quickly behind Ryan and Alexia. They ran through twisting and turning corridors before finally coming to another large stone room, where another slab quickly rolled shut behind them, locking the beast out and locking them in. They could hear the monsters screeching and clawing at the rock on the other side. They knew that the creature would eventually break through the door. The thing wasn't human anymore. It wouldn't grow tired. It would just relentlessly keep coming until all of them were dead and in its stomach. It was then that 4 large lamps lit up the corners of the room once more, lighting the room and allowing the remaining 4 to realize where they were. They were back in the room they had started in. They had run around in a big circle.
Shit!
Alexia yelled.
We're back where we started!
She added, fists clenched at her sides. The squared light then flickered to an outline of the robed figures once more. Can you hear it, brothers and sisters? Can you hear our goal at hand? I can feel it. I can taste it. The original man spoke. Yes. The man and woman from his sides then replied. I can hear it. The redcoat. The redcoat brings us salvation. Ah! The man at his side yelled as he was pelted hard in the head with a stone, followed by another one, flung from Becky's hand to nail the man in the face, where he fell off his balance and toppled over through the opening and into the room below, landing with a crunch and a yell of pain. She attempted to throw more rocks at the others, but a metal gate slid shut over the window, causing the stones to just bounce off with several clangs and clunks. The 4 of them near instantly swarmed the man, pinning him against the wall. Who the fuck are you? And why are we here? Ryan yelled, pushing the man hard against the chiseled stone wall behind him.
I'm sorry. Please, I'm just a farmer. Please don't hurt me.
The older man screamed in pain and fear.
If you don't tell us what's up, we're going to do more than hurt you, old man.
Ryan yelled, knocking the old man's head hard once again against the stone wall behind him.
Please, I'll do anything. Please.
The old man yelled through his bleeding mouth, injured by a thrown rock.
Tell us how to get out of here.
Dan spoke up.
Take the 3rd tunnel to the right. Now, please just let me go.
the man pleaded. Suddenly, the bunch of them were startled by the sound of crumbling rock and the creature's voice growling louder before the stone slab gave way, allowing the monster access to his next meal. Ryan spun around, attempting to use the robed man as a human shield. He knew that the old man wouldn't do much to stop the advancing monster, but he wanted to get every second he could for a chance to escape. He was just about to push the old farmer towards the beast and take off running when he noticed something odd. The creature would advance no further into the room. It just kind of stalked back and forth at the room's edge, as if something were preventing it from progressing any further. Ryan held on to the man with an arm around his neck, slowly backing out of the room before stopping just a few feet out of the open doorway.
Tell him to close it,
Ryan demanded.
Close the door,
the robed man yelled. A moment of silence passed, while nothing happened.
Please,
the robed farmer pleaded.
Please close the door,
he yelled once more. This time, they did as he asked, and rolled the stone slab in front of the door once again, locking the beast inside. The stone would not hold the monster for long, so they quickly caught up to the others, leaving the beast to claw away at the door. They all gathered near to the next closed doorway, but did not yet go inside. They had been in this room once before, and they knew that the psychopaths that locked them down here were waiting for them there, but they wanted to get some information first. Ryan once again slammed the old man up against the stone wall.
All right, talk,
Ryan began.
Why didn't that thing attack us?
He asked.
I don't know,
the old man said, gripping his arm and looking away.
Bullshit, you don't know. There's 4 of us and only 1 of you. I suggest you start talking,
Ryan demanded.
Okay,
the man quivered.
It must be the tattoo,
the man answered.
What tattoo?
Alexia asked. The old man looked at her oddly, still shaking a bit.
This one,
he said, raising up his sleeve to reveal a black ink tattoo of a single dot, along with a solid line above it.
You mean to tell me that fucking tattoo kept that monster away? Are you fucking kidding me right now? I should feed you to that thing,
Ryan yelled at the man.
Please, I don't know how it works, but it's true. We all have one,
the man cried. Perhaps I could explain it better, if you care to listen. A calming, elderly man's voice spoke from the darkness of the room beyond. The voice sounded oddly familiar to both Becky and Alexia, but neither of them could really put their finger on it. The group of them then moved on into the room, dragging the old, robed man along with them.
Who the fuck are you?
Alexia yelled. A square light flicked on once more, revealing a single, solitary dark figure standing within. We go by many names. The Order. The Cult of Locusts. The elderly man in the light spoke up.
What the hell is going on?
Becky then asked. You have been chosen to act as the sacrificial offering to the Locusts. Chosen to bring us everlasting life and the power of eternity, the man said happily. You're fucking crazy, old man, Ryan yelled.
Wait, what about the tattoos?
Dan asked. Ah, yes, the man said, moving an arm into the light and extending his index and little fingers forward, pulling the sleeve of his robe back to reveal the same tattoo, a black dot beneath a solid black line. This is an ancient marking, a marking found within native pictograms of the Americas. It is a symbol that represents all evil and darkness in the world, the robed man in the light said, before his hand suddenly shot upwards, raising his index finger and little fingers toward the sky and inverting the tattoo to where the black dot was above the line. And this is its opposite. All good and light. Two sides of the same coin. one an inversion of the other. Without evil, there can be no good. Without darkness, there can be no light. The man spoke.
Okay, but what the fuck does that have to do with anything?
Ryan questioned. Nothing, really. I just have a flair for the dramatic, the old man in the light said calmly. Many years ago, before the white man stepped foot on American soil, something happened. A young native girl was murdered during a time of peace. A murder that resulted in the girl's mother losing her mind, and with the destruction of her spirit from the loss of her daughter, so too came the destruction of the spirit of this land. But not just the land. The water beneath it, around it, within it. The water itself became cursed by the tears of this woman. All of the death and destruction surrounding this area, it all grew from a seed planted in that moment, but there was a way to undo what was done. When she and her daughter were reunited in death, when a woman came and dug up the young girl's remains in order to return them to the lake, this calmed the woman's spirit, and this truly did break the curse. But as fate would have it, something happened, and one of those bones was removed from the waters, only for it to disappear once more, plunging us once again into darkness. The robed figure continued.
All this crazy shit about curses and crap, but I didn't hear an answer to my question. Just the insane ramblings of a madman.
Ryan blurted out. Oh, but I have. The robed man spoke. Are you aware that some people have mixed cremated remains of loved ones into tattoo ink in order to be with them forever? The man answered.
The tattoos have ground up bones of the girl mixed into them?
Alexia said in realization.
Precisely.
The man spoke calmly. It was then that 3 more windows opened up around the edges of the room, each of them filled with robed figures, all of them glaring down at their sacrifices.
Who the hell are you people? Let us go!
Becky yelled in desperation. It was then that the solitary figure in the center of them removed his hood to reveal the countenance of the elderly man beneath.
Mr. Shaw?
Becky gasped in confusion. Hello, young lady. How's the hand? Amadeus Shaw asked her with a gentle smile.
How?
Becky asked him. Pardon? I'm not sure I understand what you're asking, my dear. The old man questioned.
How could a nice old man be such a monster?
She asked him. Why, I'll tell you, young lady, Mr. Shaw began, his tone changing to become more stern and angry. I seek power. I seek the power to inflict my revenge without the fear of death. My goal? The goal of this order? To control humanity. To bring justice to an unjust world. To take from society what society took from me. Happiness, life, a chance at normalcy, my future. Mr. Shaw stopped and collected himself once more. You have been chosen to help me, help us, achieve our goal to bring the power of the Locusts down upon society. Mr. Shaw said calmly. Then the sound of cracking bones could be heard echoing through the tunnels. The redcoat was quickly approaching, and in the fear of the moment, the robed prisoner broke free from Ryan's grasp before grabbing a hold of Rebecca's throat and quickly retrieving a pocket knife from beneath his robe. Shit, Ryan said, ashamed of himself.
Let her go, you piece of crap!
Dan yelled.
I'm not letting you prevent us from achieving our goal.
The old man yelled. A job well done, Brother Morton, spoke Mr. Shaw, obviously talking about the old farmer with his arm around Becky's neck.
Let her go!
Yelled Alexia as the sound of cracking bones grew closer.
Let her fucking go, man!
Yelled Ryan. Suddenly, A scream of pain rang out from Morton's throat as Becky bit down onto his arm, tearing the skin from the muscle beneath as she ripped his flesh upward between her teeth. The man dropped the knife and fell to the ground beside it, gripping his bleeding arm. "You bitch!" yelled Morton, blood gushing out from between his fingers. Then the tall, slender figure of the redcoat emerged from the tunnel like a spider crawling across the surface. This caused the man to laugh because he knew that he was protected. He knew that he had won and the others had no escape. He was protected by the image inked upon his skin. But then the monster turned and directed its attention toward him. No, what are you doing?" Morton yelled as the beast came closer. He retrieved his knife and began swinging it desperately at the redcoat, but it simply gripped him about his wrist and snapped the bone in two like a twig, followed by driving the man's own knife into his face several times. Becky spit out a flap of skin from her mouth and held it in her palm. It had a black dot and a solid black line inked upon it. She then held tightly onto the torn skin as she ran out of the room and back into the tunnels, the irony taste of blood still in her mouth. The rest of the group quickly followed, absolutely shocked at how Becky had freed herself. The lot of them once again made it to the area where the tunnels branched off in several different directions, and from there they moved to the third tunnel from the right, just as Morton had said. The fear of it being a trap did lurk in the back of their minds, but they had little other choice in the matter, considering they were stuck between a rock and a hard place, or a monster and a possible trap. But luckily for them, Morton's fear of death made him speak the truth, and there at the end of the rocky tunnel was a tall iron ladder that led up a few dozen yards. The four of them rushed up the ladder as quickly as possible as the sound of cracking bones could be heard approaching through the tunnels.
Hurry up, it's coming!
Alexia yelled, pushing Becky up the ladder faster. Dan and Ryan followed thereafter. Becky made it to the top of the ladder, where she found a metal door. Quickly, she swung it open and climbed out onto the dirty floor in a dark room lined with stones set into the wall. Loud music could be heard emanating from upstairs. She immediately recognized that they must be in the basement of the mansion. But she didn't have time to figure out much else before she quickly turned to help Alexia out of the hole behind her, followed by Dan. But as Ryan's hands reached the opening, he let out a blood-curdling scream. He flailed and shook as the others attempted to pull him free from the hole. He screamed and pleaded for help, but quickly went silent before the trio managed to yank him free from the hole, or what was left of him. His bottom half was completely gone, torn and bitten off at the waist. Alexia screamed at the sight of the top half of her boyfriend bleeding out upon the floor in front of her. Becky, however, acted quickly and slammed the bloody door shut before lodging a thick metal pole through the door's bolt and latch lock to keep the monster down in the depths of the tunnels beneath the mansion. The three of them breathed heavy, Alexia crying, Dan at a loss for words, and Becky relieved. They had escaped. It was a great loss, but they had escaped.
Come on,
Becky said calmingly to Alexia and Dan.
Let's get out of here,
she added, rubbing Alexia's arm to comfort her and get her out of sight of her deceased love. Suddenly, the remaining three were startled by the sound of loud thumps upstairs, followed by a chorus of dozens of terrified, screaming teenagers. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot.
Well, if you think the party is over, think again. There's more fun at the lake to be had. Wonder if our friends the Cultists will be there. But if you want to take a swim in immersive terror, make sure to doggy paddle your way back here again next weekend. And until then, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so I can catch you all again next Saturday.